So, you're a business owner dedicated to the significant and sustainable growth of both you and your business. Welcome to the At a Zero podcast.
Hi, I'm Jay Allen from the At a Zero podcast, and in this episode, I'll be sharing with you as to why you are the most important person in the world. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not on some ego trip here to be able to talk about you being the superhero that everyone should bow down and woe is me to, or to put on a pedestal. There's none of that in this episode. So if that's what you're looking for, perhaps it's worthwhile skipping on now. So what am I talking about? Well, in order to be able to put this into context and to share with you as to why today is such an important episode, I need to share with you a concern that I have for not just one or two, but three of our recent clients. Now, don't get me wrong, I've been working quite diligently for the last few months or so with a number of different business owners to be able to significantly and sustainably grow both them and their business. But in the last 2 months, 3 clients have been admitted to hospital. Now, I'd like to point out straight away that that's none of it is a direct action or reactions to something that we've done. But on 3 separate occasions, I've had a call from either the CFO or the COO or a wife in one circumstance to advise that we're unable to continue coaching this week because the person that I'm working with has been taken to hospital. This is not just they're unwell or they've got a sniffle. It's they've been admitted through A&E to hospital. And when we look at what's caused that, on all 3 occasions, it's through a lack of personal care, of putting the business first, of working some ridiculous hours to try and push the business forward with all of the stresses and the strains of owning a growing business, along with the demands of being a husband or a father or a mother or a partner. You get my drift. The amount of stress and pressure that they've put on themselves has had such a significant impact that the body's given up and said, I can't do this anymore. One of the clients was out on a run that morning, one Saturday morning, was out being able to take a jog to be able to clear his mind. He knew it's something that he needed to do, and it got a lot of pressure on in the business, and they'd recently moved house, and there was lots of things going on at the same time. And he was out on a jog that after one Saturday morning, when halfway round the park he starts to feel unwell. He'd stopped his jog and starts to walk, and then he realised that walking still wasn't making him feel any better, to the extent that he phoned his wife and said, look, something's not quite right. I need you to come and pick me up. And by the time she got there, in a bundled couple of kids in the car, and found out where he was on the route, he was sat on the side of the road and said, look, something's really not right. Can you take me straight to the doctors? He went into an emergency doctor's appointment, who then subsequently called an ambulance and transferred him to hospital. Now, I'm really pleased to report that he will make a full recovery, but not before the diagnosis and suggestion of a treatment that he needs to take the next 3 to 6 months off work and completely calm down and reduce his blood pressure significantly so it doesn't cause an ongoing problem in the future. And this is a young guy with a young family. This is not somebody that's old or overweight or bad diet and nutrition. This is somebody that's just taken on far too much, been burning the candle at both ends for too long, and the body's just simply said, I can't do this any longer. Got another client who went in for a routine operation, needed a very minor surgery to be done to be able to rectify a problem. And whilst there, the doctor was saying, look, we're supposed to be doing this operation. We're supposed to be making you a lot better. And we're unable to do that today because your blood pressure's too high and we can't put you into surgery. You can't go into general anaesthetic with the level of stress that the body's already under. we're going to have to defer and delay that and give you some medications to slow down your blood pressure in order that you can have what should be a routine outpatient appointment. And another who collapsed at work, literally fell over and collapsed. People around and witnessed it, thought it was having some form of seizure and called 999. The ambulance came along and checked all his vitals and again said, you just seem to be under so much stress and pressure that your body is not responding well right now. You haven't eaten properly, you're not taking care of yourself, and as a direct result of that, your body's trying to be able to rekindle and recuperate in the best way it knows how. And all three are now taking some time out of the business to be able to look after their own personal health. Now, don't get me wrong, there is nothing within what we do that advocates working stupid hours or taking on so much pressure. It should always be about bite-sized bits. Surely the whole purpose of owning your own business is for you to be able to get to call the shots, to determine the what, the where, the when, the why, the who, and to stop being quite so busy. So what's the cause? What's leading young, fit people to be able to end up in A&E and at risk of quite serious injury? And quite frankly, having conversations with them and other people within the business, at times whilst they've been in hospital, having conversations with their partner or loved ones to be able to understand as to how best can I be of help and support right now at this time? Who else within the business needs some help and support whilst they take on this new additional role of a stand-in managing director for a while, whilst the boss is off? What else can I do to help and support? One of the key fundamentals that was across all three conversations from three different clients, from three different industries, the one thing that seems to be prevalent was that they were putting so much into the business that they created a busyness. They weren't in business anymore. They were in this frantic circle of spinning so many different plates that they were just in the busyness. And as a result of which, their activity was up and their productivity was down. They were doing more and achieving less. Let me just say that again for you. They were doing more, but achieving less. And as a result of it, they were becoming more and more distressed because the results weren't what they expected or wanted them to be. And they fell into that decreasing circle of therefore doing more and getting back less. My concern is that these aren't concealed incidents. I've seen numerous posts on various different social media channels recently talking about the stress in business, talking about the amount of hours and the amount of responsibility, the amount of different things that people are doing without any consideration at all for what you're capable of doing on a sustained basis. Now, we've only got 24 hours in a day. No one's been able to work out what the 8th day of the week was that the Beatles sang about in the 60s. We've only got 24 hours a day, and yet so many people are trying to cram in as many different things as possible into those 24 hours that in actual fact, none of them are being achieved in the way that you could achieve them if you took some of the things off your plate. There's a great book that I read a number of years ago. It was called Slowing Down to Speed Up, talking about the importance of being able to do less to achieve more. It's almost the oxymoron of what I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis right now, not only with my own clients, but with a number of people I'm networking with who are talking about how busy they really are, the amount of things that they're trying to fit in. So let's look at some of the science behind this and then understand how we can implement it into your business to have a better impact and not put you and your health at risk. There's some that now believe that our brain has the capacity to only take on so much before it feels overwhelmed. There's a whole series of science and thinking that suggests that we can do about 7 things, give or take 1 or 2. They say 7 plus or minus 2 is about the max that we can ever do at any one time. And yet, therefore, people think that I can add 7 or 8 or 9 things to my day-to-day list and still be proactive. And that's simply not the case. Because we're not talking about 7 things, 8, 9 things every single day. We're talking about a maximum of 7 things before you feel overwhelmed. And the closer we get to 7, the more likely it is that the body's now going into reserve to try and say, well, we've still got X and Y and Z to do. So what I've been practicing is to be able to reduce that down to 1. Just 1 single thing. Let me give you a quick example about how I do it in my business and the impact it's now having, and then perhaps we can impart that to, so what would your 1 thing be? I know that I perform best when my endorphins are already fired up, when I've already got some blood and oxygen running through my body, when I'm on fire. I know when I'm at my best is if I've already done some form of physical activity before I've come to work. So, first thing in the morning, the first thing I do is get up and go for a swim. I love swimming. I was brought up to learn to swim early. Thankfully, I learned to swim well. I've swum for county and for my college and school. And I've maintained swimming predominantly all the way through my adult life. So first thing in the morning, before breakfast or anything like that, usually whilst my wife's still waking up and starting to get used to the day and ready, I'll be up and out and off to the pool. And I'll do a mile in the morning. 64 lengths in our local pool. Back home, little bit some nutrition to be able to recharge from the calories I've already burnt. And then working on my business. Some designated time that I'm not available to clients or to staff or anybody else. Some specific diarised time to work on my business. And I'll do that for 45 minutes to an hour. Then I'll break and have my first coffee of the day. And then I become available to working with clients and customers and prospects, to go networking, to be able to do the other stuff, to be of service to other people. And I know that when I'm available to a client from 10 o'clock in the morning onwards, that I can give myself wholeheartedly to that client or those clients for the rest of the day, because I've already got the stuff that I needed to do done before I give myself to others. It's all around being selfish in order that I can be of service and selfless to other people. And the days or the times that I've either not fitted that in or something's interrupted that, whilst I try and give my all, I'm very, very conscious that my all isn't as much as if I'd already done that first thing in the morning. So to plan out my day and ensure that I've got me sorted first, that I've done what I need before I give myself to the business, enables me to give more to the business when I'm at work. However, it does go a stage further, because I said, how do I condense everything that needs to be done into the one thing that I'm going to get done? And that's the next trick. In my office, just through the door over there, in my office, I've got 2 big whiteboards just to the right of where my computers are, where my screens are, that are in my visual, my peripheral vision every single day. On the left-hand board, it's full. There's post-it notes, there's a clipboard with loads of different lists on it, there's scribbles on the whiteboard, there's things stuck to it with blue tack. The left-hand board, I'd like to call it creative. If you looked at it, you might consider it a bit of a mess. There is lots going on. And above it is a little title that says ideas. And my left-hand board is my ideas board. All of the things that I could be doing, all of the things that are still outstanding, all of the things that need to be done but aren't being done right now. On the right-hand board is a lot more structure. There are 2 specific lines that divide the board equally into 3 parts. The left-hand part says short-term activity. The middle part says mid-term activity. And the right-hand part, long-term activity. And above the board, whereas the left-hand one says ideas, the right-hand board says actions. And I am only allowed to put one thing in each of those columns. One activity that I'm working on a short-term basis. One activity in a mid-term basis. And one activity on a longer-term basis. Now, the term is entirely up to you. It might be today, this week, this month. The time frame in which you divide those 3 columns up is entirely up to yourself. Certainly at the moment, mine is short term is this month, mid-term is this quarter, and longer term is by the end of this year. And at the moment, I've got one task in my short-term list of things that I'm going to work on a day-to-day basis whilst I'm in that hour of working on my business each day, of things that I'm going to get achieved, the one thing I'm going to get achieved within this month. There's another column, the mid-term, of things that I'm going to get completed within the quarter. And if I'm not working on this, or once I've finished working on that and I've ticked it off the list, I can now start contributing to the things I want to get done by the end of the quarter, and vice versa, to be able to do the same for the long-term activity. And therefore, on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter basis, I've got a whole series of ideas of things that I could be doing, and I've got one thing that I will be doing. And in order to, or I am doing, I'm actively participating in. And in order to be able to segment everything, I've got a simple question. What activity do I need to be doing right now that has the biggest impact on everything else that still needs to be done? And therefore I can prioritize all of the ideas to say which of those ideas can I move, which one idea can I move from my ideas board, the things that I want to do, to the things that I'm going to get done that's going to have the biggest impact on all the other things that are still yet to be done. And once it's on the actions list, it can't be removed until it's ticked. So, in this episode, I want to share with you why you are the most important person in the world, and the willingness and accepting the acknowledgement that it's only when you put yourself first and you determine what activities do you need to do or stop doing, what nutrition do you need or to stop eating, drinking, what habits do you need to start and stop, what sleep do you require in order to be at your prime, your optimum, that when you come into the world of business, that when you are a husband or wife or partner, father, daughter, when you are with something else and with somebody else, you can give your all because you have your all to give. It's only when we are actively present that we can be truly effective. And that involves calming down the noise, removing some of the distraction, and ensuring that you put you first. Let me know as to how hard that's resonated and the things that you're going to stop doing in order to be able to achieve more. God bless, take care, look after yourself, and I'll see you again next week.
That's all for this episode. As always, we really thank you for listening and welcome your comments, thoughts, and suggestions. So please do drop us a line by emailing podcast@mytruenorth.biz. And don't forget, if you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button on whichever platform you're listening to this through. And tell your colleagues and business network all about who we are. You've been listening to the Add a Zero podcast presented by Jay Allen. Brought to you in association with My True North, the UK's leading ethical coaching company.